Welcome everyone to our career chat for June 15th, the benefits of a graduate education. And so we're so excited to have representatives from our TU Graduate School in addition to our law school to talk about the benefits, why you may want to pursue a degree, what major or what degree may look good for your undergraduate major, or even years of experience you may have. So, and looking at the participant list, I know we have some current students. Looks like we have possibly some alumni on as well who are maybe thinking about coming back to get a degree. And so we want to keep it casual. So just a few housekeeping things. This is being recorded. So the replay will be available on the University of Tulsa Business Career Center YouTube page. And so I'll send out that link to everyone. If you have questions, this is not a webinar format. So I do ask that you mute your phones if you're not speaking, or you mute your audio. But if you have a question, feel free to unmute and just jump in and say you have a question. Or if you're not comfortable with that, feel free to just type your question in the chat. In the chat box, if you're logged in via Zoom and not called in, you'll see some documents. And so our presenters will upload documents. They'll have their contact information in the chat area for you to capture, to write down, so you can reach out to them later. So feel free to either chat your questions or watch the chat for any documents that are there. And there's already one out there that lists some of our programs. Again, we want to keep it as casual as we can. This is the benefit, and this is why we're doing these career chats. So with that, I'm going to let our presenters just kind of introduce themselves, what they do, and their journey through all of this, whether you're a representative for the graduate school or a current law student, and just any opening comments, and we will go from there. So thank you everyone for attending. So Caitlin, let's go ahead and start with you.
Okay. My name is Caitlin Getchell. I am the academic advisor for the graduate school here at TU. I am also an alumni of TU's law school. I graduated back in May. So if you have any questions about any of our graduate programs or the law program, feel free to shoot them my way.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and go next. I'm Morgan Schumar. I am the communications coordinator for the graduate school. Previously, I was in the business college, essentially doing similar things, communications, application stuff, and recruiting for the business college graduate programs only. Now I do the communications for all of the programs. So I'm learning kind of, all the ropes on that, but still very well versed in the business side of things. And yeah, I've been here about a year and a half, a couple of months, not quite a half, I guess, yet. And yeah, I've enjoyed every minute of it. So glad to be here.
I'll go ahead and go next. I'm Ashley Chapa. I'm the director of graduate admissions and enrollment, and I've been with TU for, I guess this will be my 7th year now, so going on for a little while here. I was formerly with the College of Business as well, doing recruitment at one point, and then admissions and enrollment and scholarships information for specifically graduate business students, but now I'm overseeing admissions and enrollment for all graduate programs.
And Gavin?
My name is Gavin Burrell. I'm a Rising 3L student at the TU College of Law. I'm also the vice president of the BLASA Club, which is the Black Law Student Association. And part of what that entails is creating and harboring a more inclusive environment for Black students at TU, and also non-Black students at TU who want to, get to know more about Black culture and find ways to connect with us.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So we're just going to open it up. Whoever wants to take it. Gavin, let's go ahead and start with you. I know I told you guys it's not really a panel, but to drive discussion, we need some questions. So Gavin, tell us a little bit about your undergraduate career. Why did you want to pursue a law degree?
So I guess to get an idea of why I wanted to pursue law, you kind of have to go back to my childhood. So I was a Hurricane Katrina refugee, and during that time in my life, I saw a lot of structural failures, and a lot of times where the structures that were put in place to, protect and assist citizens going through times like that. We were kind of left out to dry. And so from that, I knew that with whatever career that I pursue, I wanted to help people. And I think when you think about, just what does it mean to help people, you can think about it in a lot of different ways. So, you could help someone across the street, or you could, help someone figure out, a test question or anything. There's just many different ways to help people. But at the end of the day, your capacity to help depends on what you do. And so I wanted to, increase my capacity to help others and my ability and, what I could do. So growing up, I just thought that athletics was the only way to do that because, that's just the only thing that I was exposed to growing up. And I just figured, you go to college, play sports, try to make it professional, and then use whatever money, or platform that you gain from that to help others. So here's where my path kind of got a little twisted. So I made it to the college level, and I was playing sports on that level, but injuries took that away from me. So I got 3 concussions within a month, but that never stopped my my desire to help people. And so luckily I was in the right department, or the right educational department. I was a political science major, and through the by that time I was already thinking of what the future would hold for me. And from there, it kind of just seemed like law school was just the obvious choice, especially for someone who wants to increase their capacity to help others. Because when you're a lawyer and you're representing people, your words, not only do they hold value, but they may play a deciding factor in someone's fate, as far as getting released from prison or getting sent to prison. And just your capacity, like I said, your capacity to help increases. And I just figured this would just be the perfect thing for me to do, because I've grown up watching, the structures and the structures of government, and seeing that all happen before my eyes as a kid. I want to be a part of that and make it work the right way.
I like that. Undergrad was political science, right? So,
yes.
Very good. Now, did you go to law school right after undergrad?
Yes, I just right into it. I've never been in any professional setting yet. Never had a big boy job.
Now, am I correct in that you are currently with the?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that last part?
So I was. Are you with is it Tulsa Legal Defense right now? Are you interning there, or you have?
Yes, I'm interning at the Public Defender's Office, and what I do right now is I'm on this team called Project Commutation. And what we do is that we take people that are up for parole, and they send an application to us, or we go out and find people with applications that we feel like we can work with, and we take their applications to the Pardon and Parole Board, and we essentially represent them and vouch, give them reasons as to why they should be, why their sentences should be commuted and why they should be released early. But another layer to it is that we, instead of just doing that and calling it a day, we also take that extra step to make sure that the people that we are representing have jobs in place for when they get out. They have proper resources, proper shelter, and we just try to give them the best possible environment to return to.
Very nice, very nice. So so we heard a little bit about law school. So I want to talk a little bit about graduate school. So whether it's graduate business programs, master's of science programs. So this is open to anyone, Caitlin, Morgan, or Ashley. If we're thinking about someone who is thinking about going to graduate school, is there a great time to do that? And does it depend on an undergraduate major? Does it depend on where you are in life? So just a little bit of info. What do you see in helping students at the graduate school?
I'll jump in, and then Caitlin, you can add on to what I have to say, or what my thoughts are here. But there are kind of 2 schools of thought on that. So there is the school of thought that you should go out and kind of get some work experience and learn more about the world and career options and things like that before you pursue a graduate degree. And then the other school of thought is that if you kind of know for sure that you want to pursue a graduate or a post-undergraduate degree, or if it's something that you know is required for kind of your career trajectory or profession, then it makes sense to go ahead and roll right into that from undergrad, but especially if you have any sort of student loans or things like that. Before those kick in and you have to worry about starting to repay those and things like that, they can continue to be deferred while you're pursuing graduate education. I think a lot of that decision comes down to a couple of different things. Personal life situation being probably the biggest one. I know for me, so I did my MBA at TU and did my undergrad at a state, like a large state school. And when I got done with my undergrad, I was done. Like, I had no interest in continuing school. I just wanted to get out and go work, and I needed like a break. So for me, it made a lot of sense to go and do that. And then I, after working for a few years, decided that a master's degree would really help me get to where I wanted to go next, career-wise. And so I started looking into options to pursue that, and ended up doing the MBA as a part-time student, taking classes in the evening, working during the day. That worked really well for me in my path. At the time of being a student, I didn't have like children or a mortgage or, a lot of those kind of obligations that sometimes make it a little more difficult to go to school in the evenings. And so for me, it worked really well. I could go from working all day to go to class at night, and it all kind of fit. Now having a child and a second one on the way and like other things like that, there's no way for me personally that I feel like I would be in a good spot to do that, at least at this point in my life. So I think that kind of speaks to like where you are in your personal situation. I will say, it is certainly doable to go back to school later on, but it's not easy. It's a lot on your plate. So I think if you know for sure that you want to get a graduate degree, or for sure that it's going to be something that's required for your professional or career goals, then there's really no reason why you shouldn't go ahead and go right into that path. So.
Well, and just to kind of tag on to what Ashley was saying about that, I did kind of a similar path to what Ashley was saying, where I took a break after undergrad before going to law school, and I went to law school part-time while working full-time. But I didn't have a lot of the other distractions like kids and things like that might make it more difficult to go back later. But, something that you might want to think about is if you know that you're going to want to get a master's degree, for instance, TU has the ability to double count some of your undergrad classes towards a master's degree, and you can finish your master's degree faster. So, that's something that is kind of a nice perk that if you did it straight out of undergrad, that you might not be able to do if you were coming back 5-10 years later. The other thing to keep in mind, I think Leonelle had kind of mentioned whether there's a specific undergrad degree that's a good idea if you're going into a master's program. And that kind of varies depending on what kind of program you're looking at. For instance, if you're going to try to get a master's degree in something like, engineering, you may need to have an undergraduate degree in engineering in order to be coming into that graduate program ready to go, like up to speed. Whereas, I know something like an MBA, a law degree, some of those other type of programs, it may not be as important what your undergrad degree is specifically. So not to say that there may not be courses that you would need before starting that program, but there may be a little bit more flexibility. So that's just something that you might want to look into as well, is what is the program that you're looking at, and is there a background that you should have? So.
For sure. And I think another thing to keep in mind too is that there are often quite generous scholarship opportunities at the graduate level. And I think a lot of times students are not really aware of that fact. And so if the financial piece of it is a major concern for you, I definitely encourage you to have those conversations with your enrollment advisor or with someone from the admissions team, so that we can look at your kind of individual situation. And this goes for all schools too, not just at the University of Tulsa. If you're evaluating different programs and things like that, like have a conversation with the admissions team about your specific situation and your specific background, and see what opportunities are there. Because, I know like at the University of Tulsa, we offer graduate assistantships to, certain students. and those pay for your full tuition, they pay for your health insurance, they provide a monthly stipend. So it makes, affordability be less of a factor, especially if you're really on the kind of cusp of, I do want to do this, but I also want to make sure I don't put myself in a bad spot financially and that sort of thing. So, I mean, having those conversations, I think, is just really important because they can lead to a lot of unexpected opportunities.
Yeah, and one thing to add to that, what I always suggest to students who, are kind of in that piece of, I don't know if I should, I don't know. Every program is going to be different. So what you're looking into, whether that be, again, here at the University of Tulsa or somewhere else, you'd be probably really surprised how flexible a lot of these programs are for students who are working, have children, have very busy lives, and being able to take one class, at night after work on a Wednesday, one day a week, you can get through a program that way, depending on which program you're doing. So one thing to, like Ashley mentioned, if it's even on your radar, if it's even something that you're debating, I really encourage you to talk to some advisors at, University of Tulsa, whatever other schools you're thinking about, and kind of have that conversation as to what the program looks like, what you would need, because getting into graduate school has gotten a lot more flexible in the last couple of years with admission requirements and things of that nature. A lot of schools are going online, hybrid, evening courses, all to be flexible to the, working parent who wants to go back to school, because graduate degrees are so, important these days. So that's just something that I would encourage you to do, even if you are in, Ashley's situation where you have a kid on the way and you have one at home and, your life is busy and you're bustling around. Definitely don't let that deter you from at least looking into it. You might find that you don't have the time, and that time might come about. But it's definitely something that you should have that conversation, because you'd probably be surprised how easy and flexible a lot of programs are these days.
So just from their perspective and maybe, because I know everyone on the panel is TU, but thinking broadly about different graduate programs, Morgan, you kind of mentioned how they're a little bit more flexible. So we have our catalog, which everyone will see is in the chat, kind of the master's degrees that we offer, and of course our law degrees. How do we stay current on keeping up with making sure we're offering the right master's degree at the right time? Do we review, or do you know if schools review some of those requirements? So maybe you are a media studies undergraduate student and you want to go straight into graduate school, but you don't quite want to do the MBA. How does a graduate school and Gavin, even for you, a law school, how do you keep up with the changing needs of the world, which happens almost every year now?
I'll jump in on that a little bit. So at the University of Tulsa, we really are focused on keeping in touch with kind of the business community. So most of our colleges have executive advisory panels or boards, which are comprised of community leaders in business, sometimes even outside of the Tulsa area. And for example, we developed a Master's of Science in Business Analytics program about 3 years ago, I guess now, solely based on conversations we were having with employers and with leaders in the business, or with leaders in the industries around Tulsa and around Oklahoma. So, I think the colleges and the professors are very cognizant of kind of changing trends and try to really stay involved. One nice thing at TU is that all of our professors, or most of our professors, do a lot of like consulting work with companies and stay really involved with, their kind of previous life beyond being a professor. And I think that really helps with kind of generating those conversations about how educational needs are changing, what skills are being sought after in the workplace. Do we need to develop some coursework and some programs to kind of fit changing needs and as things develop? So I think that that's part of our job as an institution, is to really stay on top of those changes and to contribute to that knowledge as it's being built in the world, but then to also kind of be cognizant of the changing needs of our students.
Yeah, one thing to add to that too, in regards to like requirements for getting into programs, that is something we talk about all the time. So we do a lot of talking to other schools and other, admission teams and things like that, trying to figure out, what type of admission processes are you guys doing? What does the data show? Do we still think this is necessary? Is there an easier way? things like that. So, one thing we rolled out this year was making a GMAT waiver for students who had work experience. So, we felt like somebody who's been in the workforce for, 3 to 5 years, we don't necessarily, maybe need to see that score. They've been out, they've been working professionally, maybe they've been a manager. They've got all of those tools that would kind of fit them to be in an MBA program. And why let the GMAT hold them up if they're concerned about, either the cost or the time that it would take to study that, things of that nature. So even like the requirements, we work really hard to, listen to what our students are needing and to make that, more fitting to their situation and, account for some of the other experience they have outside of just academic experience in order for them to be able to come into a program and be admitted and things like that.
Awesome. So just a reminder to everyone on the call, feel free to unmute and ask a question or chat your question in. If you have a question, feel free to do that. So one question I have, throwing it back to Gavin in the law school, I get this question a lot. What's a good LSAT score to be considered? How is that used? When should you start studying?
Okay, this is what I tell people. I tell people that a good LSAT score is an undergraduate resume that shows participation. That, to me, that's your LSAT score. Because of the fact that, LSAT scores, the test formatting itself, it has nothing to do with, legal anything. It's just assessing your ability to think logically, of course. And I only say that my LSAT scores were pretty average. I think my LSAT scores are pretty average, and I got the same score every single time. And I did 3 different testing methods, but like I was more concerned about what am I doing to equip myself to show that I'm dedicated and I'm committed. Am I creating, a resume showing dedication to creating community change and stuff like that. I think it's bigger than the numbers. And honestly, the numbers themselves are what people use to talk themselves out of taking that step. So I kind of see the numbers as more of like a deterrent than an actual thing for encouragement. And I think the law schools are starting to realize that too. So I think it's important for students to know that, you're going to get a test score, but understand that, especially TU is going to give you a chance. They'll call you in for interviews, regardless of how low your test scores were. Just make sure that this is what you really want. Because in my opinion, I think that law school is something that anyone can do. It's just more so, are you prepared for the coursework? Because it is a grind. It really is. And as long as you know that and you're aware of that, then you're going to be okay, because they're going to teach you everything you need to know when you get there. There are plenty of people with non-political science or legal backgrounds that come to law school and thrive. We've got, I think one of our top students had a undergraduate degree in I think like agriculture or something. So it's about just getting there and allowing yourself to one, be an open book, absorb what they're teaching you, but also knowing that you have to work hard. Don't really get caught up on the scores. Just prepare yourself to get there, in my sense. And I know that is not necessarily the most convenient answer, but it's true. I think that schools are beginning to look more at resumes than actual scores. And I'm not saying that's not a reason to try, but just keep in mind that I don't want the students watching this, or if you're thinking about going to law school, don't let a low score, make you think that, oh, maybe I shouldn't go because I won't do well, because it's just more harmful than it is beneficial to make that the deciding factor.
Well, and to kind of build off of what Gavin was saying, as he said, like there's a lot of factors that go into an admissions decision. So the LSAT score is only one piece of what the committee is going to be looking at. But also, depending on what kind of law that you want to practice, if you're looking at doing tax law, having a background in accounting at the undergrad level may be more to your benefit than something like my degree was history. Or if you're wanting to do, something with like patents, I've talked to attorneys that really encourage people to have a background in like computer science or technology, because so many patents now are in those areas. So a JD is a degree that a lot of different backgrounds are perfectly qualified to get that type of degree.
Very good. Okay, so I want to pause for just a second and see if anyone has any questions. So again, feel free to unmute and ask your question if you have one. Or chat it. Okay, let's see. Let's see. We have a question. And I don't know if you guys can see the chat, so I'll just read it. So I would be a very non-traditional grad, well, hey Terry, grad law school student. I completed in 1989, but never used my BS in international management. Went back to get math secondary education in the 90s and have been a high school math teacher for 25 years before taking time out to work at TU to help my 2 kids. However, I would also like to use this opportunity to earn my master's. The JD is very interesting to me. What might you all recommend?
So one thing to keep in mind with a part-time JD, the American Bar Association requires that you finish a JD within 7 years. It's doable, but I took 5 to finish my JD. I was taking 2 classes a semester plus summer classes. So you have to, I believe the number of credit hours is 88 credit hours for your JD. The master's degrees are probably going to be a little faster to finish. So that might be something that you would want to take into consideration when you're looking at degree programs is, are you ready to stick it out for a long haul, or are you looking for something that you can finish in 2 to 3 years part-time?
And that has been, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that kind of rub has been part of the reason why I haven't started. I always joke and say I just can't decide what I want to be when I grow up. I I have always wanted all of my aptitude tests when I was a kid, and later, even in education, sometimes we would take aptitude tests with the kids to kind of be like, oh, we can still kind of learn. It always says that I should have been in law. And I kind of really regret not pursuing that before, especially with the current climate. I really would like to get into some sort of advocacy. So I do want to, I'm not afraid of the commitment. And I also think that I'm also trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I have to go back and teach for 5 more years to maximize my retirement in education. But if I were to do a legal thing, I could probably compensate for whatever loss I have in teacher retirement with my other career retirement. So I'm not opposed to even staying at TU beyond when my kids graduate, which, and also I was kind of listening to this with an ear for my son, because he's double majoring, and then we're talking about grad school. So, and he's a business student at TU. He's going to finish up with accounting and CIS. So anyway, that's a whole side note. But I'm not afraid of the commitment. I'm not afraid of the time. I'm just trying to decide, would I be better served trying to just get a master's and doing something else? Or I'm just thinking that my grandmother's 100 years old, which means that I'm only halfway done. If I'm anything like her, like the women in our family live a long time. So, my mom keeps saying, why would you put yourself through all that work at this age? Why wouldn't you just, do your next 10 years and retire and be happy? And I'm just thinking, because I want to do some advocacy. And so I feel like the law program would be better preparation for what I want to do for the next 30 years, because I don't think I can sit and be quiet.
One thing you might do is look at the document that I put in the chat that has the list of all of our master's and doctoral programs. And then if you haven't already, you might want to set up a meeting with somebody in the law admissions office, and then possibly also the grad school admissions office, and just sit and talk through what your interests are, what the options are, what you would do with the different options, and kind of see what, you know, might be a really good fit for you based on those conversations.
Yeah. If I'm not
Oh, I was just going to add on to that is I would definitely meet with the law team first and kind of explore what that all looks like and how you could make it work. But as Caitlin said, I would encourage you to also come and chat with us in the graduate school too, because we do have kind of the options to where we can double count courses that are from the law school as elective credits for certain programs and things like that. So there may be a way to get you to where you want to be without having to be in, 5 years of school or something too. So I would start with the law school, talk to them a little bit about what the options that would work for you, get their expertise on kind of talking about what your goals are professionally and the type of advocacy you would like to be a part of. And, do you need to sit for the bar exam to do that? Or are there other ways for you to be involved, and kind of get a good understanding and feel for the opportunities there? And then come talk to us in the grad school as well. And we'll kind of review that side of things and the options on that side. So, but yeah, I mean, honestly, like having the conversations doesn't cost you anything but 30 minutes of time. And I think that you will, just through talking about it and looking at your specific options and how we can make it work for you, I think will shed a lot of light on, is this doable? Is this feasible? Is this what I want?
And I'm putting in the chat the email for the law admissions office in case you don't have that. So
Okay, awesome.
And
Thank you.
there are also programs, I think, at least that I saw when I was getting into TU, that may allow you to get your JD and your master's within like the 3.5 and 3 to 3.5 year time period. So you may, if one of the master's program, one of the joint programs are of interest to you, you might be able to get both of them within that same time frame that it would take to get a JD.
Well, and those joint degree programs have actually been replaced by the double counting policy that we have.
Oh.
But they are still an option that we can look at. It is something, though, the 4-year mark, you're looking at a full-time program. So, if you were looking at part-time, you'd be adding on to, which is doable, but you just want to take that into account. Okay,
Okay, so a couple questions. I am going to circle back, so you all don't let me forget. So just say, you need to circle back. But I want to get to the chat questions. Ashley, you mentioned that you worked for a few years before going to get an MBA to help you get where you wanted to go in your career. Were there certain obstacles or setbacks related to not having a master's that you came across? And what opportunities has your grad degree opened up for you?
Sure. So part of the reason I didn't initially have going back to grad school on my radar directly after undergrad is because I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like I had an undergraduate degree in advertising and a second bachelor's in Spanish. And so I knew I kind of wanted to work in a marketing, advertising, communications type role. But I figured out pretty quickly that I didn't want to work in an ad agency specifically. So then I started exploring like, okay, what do I want to do? And kind of got a job doing marketing related tasks for a company and liked that. And then, kind of got involved with higher ed and the nonprofit world doing marketing. And so, as kind of my career unfolded, it sort of helped me learn and explore new opportunities and kind of changed my interests in terms of, what I want to do next or what my like long-term professional goals were. And then I started, looking like, okay, how do I get to that next job title, like the director title or, ultimately like a VP level and things like that. And I found out pretty quickly that I could move into a director role either with 10 to 15 years experience or with a master's degree and 5 years experience. And I was like, okay, let's look at that. So, so that's kind of what got me even initially thinking about graduate school, and then started looking at options there. And I will say that I am so, so happy that I ended up doing an MBA because, coming from a mass communications degree that was really focused on, communicating brand and kind of making things look a certain way and a way to communicate message, the master's in business really taught me so many things beyond just like what the textbook knowledge of the courses were. Probably the most important thing I got out of my master's degree was learning how to understand the point of view of every other person at an executive decision-making table. So I got exposure to accounting and to finance and operations and global strategy and things like that, to the point where I could feel a lot better going into a meeting. And, you know, if the accountant is pointing out their point of view on why we need X, Y, Z, I get where you're coming from now, right? Whereas when you don't really have that exposure to their point of view or their background or their, you know, where they're used to thinking about problems, when you don't have that exposure, it's harder to understand, I guess, and come together as a team to make the best decisions. So I've been really thrilled with what I learned in my master's, and also just kind of where it has taken me professionally. And it's helped me kind of continue to move up in my career. And yeah, and I got a lot out of it that I never anticipated getting out of it. I went into it with the idea of, oh, I want to make the next career move or get a promotion, basically, and came out of it with a much broader understanding of the world and how people think and how people approach problems in business.
All right, let's see. I have another question. I'm an accelerated MBA student with a business law specialization and a rising junior at TU. Who would I speak to if I'm interested in graduate assistantships? Also, I would like to attend law school. Does TU have or allow for students to take preparatory courses for undergraduates wanting to attend law school?
So regarding the question about graduate assistantships, you can talk to the graduate school, but you would not be eligible for those until you are actually a full-time graduate student. So when you finish your bachelor's degree and have moved into the MBA program, that is when you would be eligible for those. And you can reach out to the graduate school at that time. Your question about the law school allowing students to take classes, I'm not sure if they have a non-degree seeking option like the graduate school does, where you can take graduate school classes before you're in the program. They do have some classes that are double counted for both the undergraduate, students to take, and then you'll be in the same class with some law students. I know there's one that I took as part of my law degree that was women in the law. And there were undergrad students that were taking that course as like a cross-listing. But that would be something that you could reach out to the law admissions office at that email and just kind of ask if that is an option that they offer for our TU students.
Excellent. And do you guys mind putting the graduate school email in the chat as well?
Yeah, I put that. That would be a good thing to have in there too, is the grad admissions one. I'll put that one in there too.
And so as we get close to our time, we like to keep the chat short, but one question I had, so we've mentioned a lot about part-time, full-time. Can you break that down a little bit more of what that truly looks like? So what is truly full-time? What's part-time? Is there a quarter time? Is there, half time? Like kind of just to give everyone a sense of like what you may be looking at.
So typically for the graduate school, full-time would be considered 9 hours. Some programs you might be enrolled in, 12 hours or something like that. Part-time, so 9 credit hours would typically be 3 classes. So we have part-time students that take just 1 class. We have part-time students that take 2 classes. That's kind of, up to you and, what your timeline looks like. The law school, is it like 15, Gavin, is full-time? I was never full-time at the law school, so I never paid.
I want to say it's either 12 or 14. I think it might be 12. Like 12 is like full-time.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry.
So I typically took somewhere between 4 and 8 hours a semester, kind of depending on how many credit hours the classes that I was enrolled in were. So.
And I guess for context, what like I guess what that full-time day looks like, which is probably more useful to know. There are ways that you can structure your class schedule, a full-time class schedule, to only show up 2 days a week and get your classes done. Especially, and that, I think that's important for people who want to work and work a set schedule.
But
So
Gavin,
my first,
that's after your first year, right?
yes,
Is that-
yeah, oh, yeah, I was about to, yeah, I was gonna.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I should clarify that. That's after your first year. First year courses are pretty much set in stone for you, and you kind of have to work with what they give you, which I'm hoping that can be something administratively, or I guess whoever is in charge of that can find a way to make that, more accommodating. So that is a struggle. I guess I kind of forgot about that because I've been spoiled with like the second year lifestyle, which is the fact that you can choose your classes in your second and third year and really structure them in a way that fits you perfectly. So for all of my 2L year, I was able to just show up to class 2 days a week. So my first semester, my courses were on Mondays and Wednesdays, and occasional Fridays if something, happened. And then this past semester, I only went to school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I was able to work Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and just really just make it work. So like, I guess technically what I'm saying is after that first year, full-time is definitely a lot. It just doesn't seem as intimidating.
So to kind of clarify what I meant about your first year. So law school, you typically, every law school out there, your first year of law school, there are set courses that every law school requires you to take. Things like Civil Procedure 1, tort law, things like that. So TU's law school, what they typically do is when you sign up and say, yes, I'm coming, they send you, here is your schedule for your first semester. You don't have any like, I want this class or that class. It is, you are taking these classes, they are offered at these times. These are the times that you are expected to be in class. And then after that first year, you have a lot more flexibility in your program.
Excellent. So we heard a lot, just some closing thoughts. I know, Ashley, you went to MBA after working. Caitlin, you did part-time law school. Gavin went to law school right from undergrad. And so if you're thinking about, again, kind of circling back to, should I go to get maybe an MBA straight from undergrad? That's the route I took. It's been 15 years ago now, but again, just knowing kind of what it is you want to pursue. So I'm an accountant by degree, went to TU. We didn't actually have a master's of accountancy. And so I knew I needed 150 hours to sit for the CPA exam. We didn't have a master's of accountancy. A lot of classes double counted for the MBA. So I did the MBA with the concentration in taxation. Don't use that now, but I do use the MBA, and as my career has gone, and I will say when I started work, I started at a higher salary because I had that master's coming in. I was able to progress through the supervisory level, and I went to a corporation a lot quicker than my peers who had a bachelor's. It depends on the corporation too as to the value they place on a master's degree. My corporation did, so I was able to get into the supervisory roles quicker. And it also, the MBA, I'm really glad I didn't do the master's of accountancy. I didn't want to be boxed in as an accountant because I don't do accounting now. I mean, I do it as a side hustle, but I do a lot of things as a side hustle. But the MBA really helped me to really see more of the business area and not just the accounting side, and actually helped me get into higher ed. So if you're out there thinking, well, should I go straight from undergrad? You can, just knowing it makes a lot of sense if you are an undergrad accounting major. If you're going to a public accounting firm, you need the 150 hours. So you might as well just go ahead and get a master's. I also recommend personally, as I advise you all on career aspects and everything, I really try to advise on a master's more so than a double major to get those 150 hours, or a master's instead of adding on like another year or two to get a second undergrad major. That master's just helps out a lot. You get another degree. If you're going to be there for another year and a half, might as well get a master's or an additional degree. That could be law as well. So just a little tidbit, because I don't think we had that represented on straight from undergrad to a business degree or any particular masters. I know we had Gavin going straight to law school. So with that, I'm going to see if there's any more questions. So you have the contact information in the chat. So do you all prefer that they use those and to contact you all as opposed to directly?
They're welcome to email directly too. I think it just that one's going to be one that if you're not sure who to talk to, those are monitored and we'll make sure you get to the right person.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Any additional questions?
So I'm actually just going to put my email in, I guess, for anyone who's interested in law school. I'll be obviously willing to offer myself as a resource or anyone to speak to. So I'm just going to put my TU email in there so you can just contact me if you need to talk about anything.
Awesome. And we do have, Grace, do you mind clarifying who do I talk to for admissions? So particular program or just in general? For business analytics. That would be the graduate school.
Yeah, Grace, I'll put my email in here and you can send me your questions directly. And then I can give you all the information about the business analytics program and through the application process and things like that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Again, if you have additional questions, the email addresses are in there. The recording will be on the Business Career Center YouTube page. And I thank you all for joining us today. We'll be back next week for a career chat. It will feature Gilbert Rogers, Dr. Gilbert Rogers, our Director of Financial Wellness, and he is going to talk about the karma of credit, why you need it and why it can hurt you. So join us again at noon next Wednesday. Same link for Zoom. So hope to see you there. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone.
You know.